Welcome to another episode of Mahogany and Willow. Today we're going to talk about what the difference is between giving up and hitting the wall. In this episode, we will talk about how understanding the difference can leave you in a more empowered state of mind. Hi, Jeanette.
Hi, Tiffany. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good.
Good. Have you ever been in a situation where you felt like you've hit the wall?
Yes.
Okay, tell me now.
To me, hitting the wall signifies a time when I realize that something needs to change within myself. We all interact with life through our developed patterns. We develop those patterns to cope with events and experiences, and they're usually challenging ones in our lives. At times, those patterns work for us, and then we hit times in our lives where we realize they no longer create the desired outcomes they once did. And it's then we realize we need to shift the patterns. But for me, feeling like I've hit the wall or reached a limit is what tells me that this needs to occur. What does hitting the wall mean to you?
When I say hitting the wall in my life, it usually refers to a moment where I just had enough. It's a moment in time where I think I had some sort of an awakening, is the way I describe it. And, I tried to do a little bit of research on what the experts say about hitting the wall, and it was completely different than what I felt. So I'll just speak about how it feels for me. When I have hit the wall in my life, it's usually at a pivotal moment where I think there's nothing else I can do. There's nowhere else to go. And I'll be speaking about a relationship. And it's not saying that that person is 100% at fault, that this is all on them, has nothing to do with me. It's just a point where I feel like no matter what, I am stuck. And if I don't change my environment, if I don't get myself out of that situation, I will stagnate. I will not change. I will not grow. And this particular situation is not going anywhere because of a pattern of repetitive behaviors, things like that, where I know for a fact, okay, I'm stagnating. This relationship is stagnating. It's time to move on. And that time of hitting the wall to me is an absolute awakening. It's painful. It's the time when you definitely need to dig deep. It's a time when you know, okay, I've got to make some serious changes in my life. And the only way I can do that is to pluck myself out of a situation. That's what it means to me. So, and I'm not sure if that's a relatable thing. For some people, it means something totally different. At that particular time, it's a time to reflect and go inside and ask myself a ton of questions like, what am I doing to contribute to this relationship, demise? And does it mean that I'm incapable of having a healthy relationship? And do I need to walk away? Or walking away, does that mean I'm a quitter? And that was a tough thing to think about when you hit the wall and you feel like it's time to leave. Does it mean I'm a quitter? I'm giving up way too soon? Because giving up on a relationship, you have to hit the wall to know, okay, it's time. Now, if you don't hit the wall, then is it too early? Did I not give it enough time? Should I give it more time? And it's just this back and forth that I personally have experienced where that's what I'm faced with.
Yeah, I have found that there's a very thin line between believing others are causing us issues, and because of that, we need to change the outer environment, versus something that's calling us and saying that it's time to do the inner work on ourselves, which to me then changes the outer environment naturally. If we choose to create healthy relationships, we have to choose to understand how we are contributing to every problem and conflict. And it's interesting to me because several times I've ended relationships because I felt I hit the wall. But the most fascinating part of that to me was as soon as the relationship ended, all of the realization about the work that I needed to do or could have done while I was in it then becomes crystal clear. So that's where I've developed that theory that I'm escaping, I'm removing myself when I hit the wall because of the discomfort, and I'm not actually doing the work. Because if I was doing the work, would I then have a bunch of realization about the work I could have done after?
Wow. We just went deep. People, we went deep. I see what you're saying, though, because I guess for me, that's why the whole thing around hitting the wall and getting out of a relationship was make sure you are ready, make sure you have done all the work that you could do, not so much on yourself, but in the relationship. Is it ready to be called off? Is it too soon? Is it premature? Is it, and yes, there's always me that needs to be worked on. But when you're dealing with a toxic individual or a person that has, whether it's addiction issues, abuse issues, that work isn't mine to do. My self-preservation kicks in. Therefore, hitting the wall means it's time to go for self-preservation. And then the work began, trying to figure out why this happened again, or why am I in this type of situation, or what can I do to strengthen myself, to work on me that's in order to be healthy for the next relationship or whatever it was. That's the way I see it anyway.
I completely understand that. I think that line between giving up and hitting a wall, I mean, obviously it's just not a clear-cut line in a way. And as you said, there's always work to be done on ourselves. Maybe I'm going to give us a little bit of grace and say maybe it's easier to do the work outside of the relationship. I just personally think I have figured out about myself that I've been doing it that lazy way for so long. I kind of just don't have tolerance for the wall theory. Maybe.
Well, tolerance, that's a good way to look at it. I haven't personally hit a relationship wall like that ever again, really. But I was glad to be able to recognize that, and that's what catapulted me into that deep dive into self-help was right after that. And that maybe that's why I didn't hit the wall again that way. I did have failed relationships after that, but it was never to the point of feeling unsafe and feeling like I had to take care of myself and my children and get us out of that situation. That was the wall that I hit. And everybody's wall is going to be different.
Right.
But I never wanted to be that person that, you know, when you're on the backside of a situation, you get out of it and then you regret. Like, I wish I wouldn't have left. I wish I wouldn't have made those decisions to get out of that. I should have gave it more time. I never had that, thankfully, because I had hit the wall hard in that situation. And that was where that saying was formed for me. It was nothing I ever even heard before until then. And that was something I taught my girls as they got into dating ages and getting up there and to where they started to have relationships. And I would tell them, they'd be, you know, that teenage thing of, oh, I feel bad all the time and this person is not healthy for me, or off and on, off and on. It's like, honey, when you hit the wall, you'll know. That's all I could say. And it resonated so well, me trying to describe it and explain it. And then only then when they actually did hit the wall, it was like a light bulb coming on of, oh, that's what that means. That's how that feels. Exactly. You'll know when you know. It's not something you can describe to somebody. You just know when you know.
Right. And the safety factor, I can completely understand the safety factor. I mean, there are times where for your own sake, you would definitely have to create distance, and then obviously go forth and do the work. I know that there's always those circumstances where while we're looking at another human being, it's really easy to feel and believe that other human being is causing all of our angst, especially over time. That's a habitual thought. I believe that's a habitual thought. So it is easy to kind of get in that trap of, while you're there and thinking all these negative thoughts about another human, it is easy to feel you hit a wall from that perspective, to the point where you can no longer see anything good in them. Mm-hmm. And that's a different hitting the wall. I think that's probably the one that I would say requires me, I'll just use me because that's a great example, that I definitely have to then do that inner work, you know, definitely not about the safety issue though. We're not saying, stay
exactly.
in unhealthy places and just do your work.
Yeah. Disclaimer here, guys. says don't stay in any toxic, horrible relationships because of, you thinking that if you haven't hit the wall yet, you have to think safety and well-being of you and your family. So there's that. Yeah, and we're not condoning ever staying in a bad situation. But mental and emotional fatigue can contribute to feeling, like you're hitting the wall.
Yes.
And that is a huge aspect because of if you're in a toxic relationship or you are depressed or you're dealing with some other outside, interferences. If you are in that situation, I would hope that you would seek help to get back to a healthy you. And if it means leaving a situation, then you have to do it. And getting overwhelmed by the flood of doubt, emotions, insecurities, and questions isn't good for any relationship either. And usually when, you're dealing with two people that probably bring a lot of baggage to the table, there's always baggage on both sides. Some of us have more than others. Some of us deal with a lot of emotional issues or outer things such as addiction and stuff. And again, we don't want anybody staying in a situation like that.
Is there a difference between the personal limits or hitting the wall and simply edges of a comfort zone? Because I know that when I'm at the edge of my comfort zone, it might feel exactly like hitting a wall.
That's a really good question. Speaking for myself, comfort zones are interesting to me in general because I think a comfort zone is when you're in a situation, it's more comfortable to not hit your wall, to not get out, to not rock the boat, to not leave. You stay in there for whatever reason, whether it's for the family, for your own sanity. I mean, you could stay in a horrible job just because it gives you a paycheck. There's a comfort zone there, even though it's a horrible situation. It could be a toxic situation. It takes more work to get out, to leave, to quit that job, to move out of that roommate situation, whatever it is. So comfort zones, I think, are kind of a different animal rather than hitting the wall. It's just easier to stay in it. Some people don't really even have any limits to their comfort zones, or they just seem comfortable no matter what the situation. And reality might be totally different, but that could be labeled as a coping mechanism or a facade as well. And some just bang through it like it's a challenge, and they have no limits to anything. But I do believe no matter what, when somebody does hit the wall, that is obvious. And no matter what the situation, no matter what it is, they won't even know that they hit the wall until they hit the wall. But then it's got to be so obvious. And I'm only speaking for myself, but anybody I've talked to or that I've known that has been in a situation where all of a sudden it's almost like waking up one morning and saying, I'm out of here, or I'm quitting today, or I'm making this decision. That's them hitting the wall. And that's the moment that they realize I can step outside my comfort zone. I can take a chance. I can take a leap. I can quit that job. I can leave that relationship. I can make that move forward to the goal I have set in my life and not even fear anything. And that to me is the ultimate hitting the wall.
And in that circumstance, being forced out of your comfort zone seems like it would happen naturally. I mean, I don't think you could make those drastic changes and stay in your comfort zone.
Exactly. Yeah, it's interesting to bring comfort zone into it because when I think of comfort zone, I think of those people that we all know that stay in whatever situation it is just because it's a habit. And the fear that's behind the change and stepping outside the comfort zone is way more powerful than anything. So they stay. But there will eventually come a time when they hit the wall for whatever reason, whether they're forced into it or it's a natural thing where they just say, I'm done. It's obvious, and it'll be like an absolute explosion. And that's the way that I have experienced it in my own life.
And from that perspective, hitting the wall or reaching a personal limit or even stepping outside of a comfort zone, they would all be a mechanism for change, for personal growth and change, regardless of how what you labeled that experience as.
Definitely, yeah. That to me would be the first step in the right direction for change, because you can't make those moves unless you're willing to change, whatever it is. If it's getting out of the comfort zone. Well, that's your first step. That's the first step to change. And then you got to make the first move after that to seek out a new place to work, or seek out a new place to live, or find this or find that. And that requires change. All of it does. And once that ball starts really rolling, I think that it's almost like this perpetual motion forward. And I think that's what happened to me during that time. It's this constant forward motion, and the mindset that I was working on, changing my mindset of the positivity and the affirmations and using the secret and whatever it took to keep that momentum going. It went on for years. And I really think that first step in the right direction it's almost like you can't go backwards. There's like this force, this energy that's behind you. Once you break through that negative field and you start to move forward with your energy and that affirmations and your positive mindset, it's like it just doesn't end. And I'll never forget that time in my life. It was just powerful for me.
Nice.
Yeah. Have you ever had an experience like that?
Well, a million. So
I have
many.
not.
So many, yes. Yeah, definitely those experiences. Like I said, I use the process of inner change during those times. You know, that's why I guess I was thinking while you were talking a minute ago, we could call it hitting the wall or embracing change.
Right.
They're kind of the same, which is weird because hitting the wall sounds like a punch in the gut and embracing change seems so open-hearted and open-minded.
Sure.
But at the same time, they're kind of leaning into each other through this conversation, which is really a fascinating way to go about trying to distinguish from them or figuring out that there might not need to be an experience of a difference at all. And maybe it is just the mode of change that we find ourselves in.
Right. Yeah. Well, and then when you were just talking about that, I was thinking of you can hit the wall or you can break down the wall. Because if you hit it, you got to break down and go through it. So it's funny, the visuals that come to our mind as we, banter through these conversations. And I can literally see myself hitting that wall back in 2008 and then literally busting it down with a sledgehammer like a new person. And it's crazy. And I've always spoken about that to other people when, you try to give advice and you try to say, look, I understand what you're going through. I've been in a similar situation and, trying to give encouragement and tell the story. And I've even recommended the book and the movie, The Secret, a million times since then because of what it did for me. And I've always hoped and prayed that whatever, our stories that we bring to the table can always help somebody else. And here we are today doing the same thing, telling stories and having conversations to where we can hopefully help other people break those walls down or get out of your comfort zone or if you hit the wall, then our conversation today might resonate with you and go, oh, I didn't realize that's what they called it. But yeah, I recently hit the wall of my own personal wall and realized I got to make changes.
And embracing the change, I guess the embracing word doesn't exactly happen organically. From your visual of hitting the wall and either hitting it and ending up looking at it again versus breaking through it, I guess hitting the wall signifies to me that a change is happening.
Yeah.
And if I resist the change, I would bounce off the wall and that would require me to hit it yet again at a further time in my future. Versus if I were able to embrace the change that was occurring in that moment, that to me would be the metaphorical breaking through the wall.
Yeah.
And that may be the last time that I would have to do that, which would be a very different experience of that, for
definitely.
sure.
Well, when you talk about embracing the change, being willing to embrace the change bounces me back to the thought that we just spoke about with comfort zone. It's, we were talking a little bit ago about some people that we all know that have hit the wall and they bang, 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 bang up against it. I don't think they've hit it hard enough. They are not ready to bust through it and make those changes because the comfort zone is just too comfortable, or it's a habit. It may not be comfortable in a good way. It's a habit. And so therefore, embracing and busting through the wall is just not an option yet. Like you said, bounce back and forth. And at a later time, when they've actually had enough of whatever the situation is, then they will bust through the wall. Most of the time you think it would happen eventually, but some people, as we all know, stay in an existence for decades and never, ever, ever hit the wall. And all of us on the outside looking in going, how do they stay in that crappy job or that crappy relationship or that whatever? They just haven't hit the wall. And if they haven't embrace the comfort zone issue, which is, I'm not ready to get out of here. Okay, then stop hitting your head up against the wall, So right. It's interesting. It's really an interesting conversation for sure.
And resistance plays a role in that to me. I think that resisting the change would be the hitting it over and over again versus embracing the change. And then the change or the situation just transforms organically.
Right. Yeah. It's really interesting to just kind of take a hard look at all of it and what there's so many factors to it rather than just, I just hit the wall. Well, there's a lot more to it than that.
Right. And whether you've hit the wall or reached a personal limit or find yourself at the edge of a comfort zone, I think all of those can just signify a change needing to occur.
Right.
Maybe that's just life's way of kind of spotlighting that.
Right.
A change is here and a change is ready. Maybe that would be a lovely way to look at it. A change is ready for us if we invite it in, if we embrace the change, if we choose not to resist. All of those being of a less severe or more severe nature. Like the edge of a comfort zone could be a very soft push from life saying, okay, this could be changed. And a personal limit might be, this needs to change.
Right.
And hitting the wall might be a holy monkeys, you might want to change right about now.
Yeah.
Kind of experience, which is interesting that there could be levels of intensity, I suppose.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And speaking for myself, and I don't mean to always go back to that, I just cannot believe how powerful it was for me at that time. It was just from one day to the next, an absolute complete change. And it was a really pivotal moment. And my hope and wish for anybody out there listening, that if you hit that wall and you hit it as hard as I did, there's a reason for it. Absolute reason for it. And like you said, maybe it's life's way of saying, now's the time, honey. Now's the time. And listen to that.
Right.
Because the resistance of, if you keep going back and repeating a cycle and it's not a healthy situation, whether it is a job or relationship, it doesn't matter what it is, that is not healthy for you, the repetition. And you're never going to step outside of that and to be able to get healthy. Right. And that's important for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, we sure hope that we actually made an impact discussing this topic today with you all. And now we can recognize the difference between giving up and hitting the wall. And we really appreciate you joining us again on another episode of Mahogany and Willow.
Because there's always something important to talk about.